Right, now Chris Baldwin from Worthing, he also did the local elections down there, so here's a nice speech from him. So could you give him a nice warm welcome? Thank you.
Hi. Actually, I've never stood in the local elections for the LCA, only generals. But
The general, I meant, the general.
So this is the first time I've ever turned up without a speech written or something, so what am I going to say?
Whatever.
Nice to see everybody here. I think, really, I'm just going to respond to a few things that have been said so far. I've always felt that our biggest enemies in society in getting this little policy carried through is ignorance and hypocrisy. And I believe that we are fighting those two things, ignorance and hypocrisy, all the way. If I was to ask any politician for a justifiable list of why cannabis should be illegal, I would read that list and then ask him why doesn't that apply to alcohol, because this doesn't make sense. It's hypocrisy. It's ignorance. There's one other enemy, of course, that we've got, which are listening to other people, are listening to what Colin was just saying. And, I go along with everything that Colin said, that hemp would be a great crop to plant. It would go a long way to saving our environment. But, unfortunately, Colin went a little bit into the history of it, and at the end of Prohibition in 1933, when the alcohol prohibition was lifted in most states in America, the feds needed a new war, and all of a sudden cannabis became the object of that war. And so really the war on drugs was born, which isn't a war on drugs, it's a war on people, because it's people that use drugs. So it's also separating a section of people from society and saying, no, you can't join in. Because you favour this, because you do this, we're not having you. We're not having you in our society. We don't want you. Well, I'm sorry, but we're a large part of society, and I believe society has a place for us, should have a place for us. And I've drifted, sorry. I was going on to what Colin said about history. Let's not forget that when cannabis was demonised by sort of the Hoover regime and the rest, at the time the DuPont Industries were pioneering their new synthetic materials, and in order for those synthetic materials to get a hold of the market, then the one that society had been using quite successfully for many years, i.e. hemp, had to be demonised, had to be got rid of, because otherwise they weren't going to make the moolah, mate. That's all it's about, the moolah. And the man who did more to demonise cannabis than anybody was a man called Harry J. Anslinger. It was the head of the Narcotics Bureau at the time. And I don't know I'm sure that many of you do know this, but for those of you who don't know it, Harry J. Anslinger was Mr. DuPont's nephew. I don't know if many of you know this, but it's a fact. And the reason that cannabis was demonised, Mr. and Mrs. Average White American were given the information that who uses cannabis, who smokes cannabis? Black men smoke cannabis. And when they smoke cannabis, what do? They break into your house, they rape your wife, they murder your children. These people, that's the information they had to go on, and that's what took hold in America. And now they seem to have all the aces at the moment and dictate most of the drug policies and probably most other policies. Does Mr. Blair care about his child? Does Mr. Blair care about anything apart from Mr. Blair? I don't know. The guy, a total liar, a cheat, a worm of the worst. I'm sorry, Mr. Blair, but you're just a worm. And This is the 7th annual party conference, so we've all been coming here for 7 years. My first bit of campaigning was in 1969 when I sent a sample of cannabis to Harold Wilson at number 10 Downing Street and told him to be careful because there's a policeman on his doorstep. I did that completely unilaterally because at the time there was no legalised cannabis campaign, no legalised cannabis alliance. But, you know, dreadful stuff, this cannabis. Oh, look, this is it. This is cannabis. It's a lovely green plant. It smells lovely. It's benign. It's delicious. And I think if you were to do a real worthwhile test on the effects of drugs within society, within any society, you would come out on the grounds that cannabis is the safest drug known in our society. There is nothing that has less side effects and nothing that I think is more user-friendly. You know, it's something where we're able to, we've learned how to, those of us who use cannabis medically, we've learned, Granny Pat will tell you all about it, we've learned how to medicate ourselves. We don't have to run off to the chemist and buy all this garbage that they sell us. You know, all these chemical industries are pumping this stuff out. They're making fortunes. They are making so much money, it's unbelievable. And that's what they want. They want their money. It doesn't matter about your future or your children. Mr. Bush recently on television, I heard Mr. Bush say, we cannot adopt these ecological policies because they will be too economically harmful to... I'm sorry? Did I hear that? Yes, I heard that. I heard the man say that on television. This is what we're up against, folks. This is it. This is what we're fighting. Ignorance, hypocrisy, greed. Greed. I've got to have my swimming pool, my jet plane. I've got to have my mansions. You know, you stay where you are, boy, because I want this, and you're staying in your place.
Thatcherism.
Sorry?
Thatcherism.
Thatcherism. Who said that?
Swearing.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, well, I personally believe that the 80s are probably the worst decade of the 20th century, all because of that woman. I don't want to drone on too long and take your time, but one other thing I just want to say is that I do tend to get a little bit upset about the fact that there seems to be so many arguments sometimes within our ranks. Look, legalise cannabis alliance. Says it all for me, kids. Right? That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here to do. Yes, I would love an integrated transport policy. Yes, I would love it if the finances of the country were better and the national debt was lower. But that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to try and legalise cannabis because I see it's an injustice. The world is full of injustice. No matter where you look, the world is full of injustice. And lots of people fight their corners to try and beat that injustice. Right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to beat an injustice. All we can do is carry on going forward. At the moment, we seem to have slipped back to some sort of reefer madness. I do not understand what's... I call it reefer madness. Yeah? Sorry, but 37, 38 years of using cannabis, I think I'm still in one piece. You know? Yes, I have a disability, but that's nothing to do with cannabis. Cannabis helps my disability. But after 37, 38 years of using cannabis, I'm still here to tell my story. I'm still going strong, like many of us are. All I can say is, for those of you who carry this fight forward and believe it in your hearts, keep believing it, keep holding that dear to you, because it is a worthwhile policy, because we need hemp back. We need to have some sort of structure back now for getting rid of fossil fuels, for striding forward. It's time to leave the old ways behind and start with a new way. And the new way is the old way, the way things used to be done at one time. And, OK, I think I've waffled enough. Thank you very much. Bye.
OK, Chris. Thanks a lot.